Now, I only found out I was going to be moderating this panel about 10 minutes ago, so apparently this panel was billed as a look back on the VHS era because all the individuals on this panel had movies that exploded primarily through VHS, although not exclusively so. But perhaps we should start with Lloyd Kaufman, who company in world history, and he started Troma in the pre-video days, or in the very early video days,
as the wagons were coming across the plains,
where the theatrical market was his main market, and transitioned into the Beta and VHS era and onward, and is still keeping up with the times. And could you please discuss those transitions?
Keeping up with the times.
Keeping up with the times.
Adapting to technology. I could be Jurassic Park 62. That's how backward we are. I only found out about this panel 2 weeks ago, and so I'm totally unprepared.
2 weeks to prepare, Lloyd.
And I'm you get nothing intelligent.
Wing it.
Yes, you get nothing intelligent from me. All I know is that when you're a small, stupid, independent movie studio, and it's late 70s, and something new comes along that might get you away from Rupert Murdoch, you jump on it, and you get there before Murdoch, and before Viacom, and before the international media conglomerates, and you get if you have a good movie, it'll get out there. And boy, the Toxic Avenger, Toxie, by the way, and you gentlemen correct me if I'm wrong, and I talk too much, I know. Toxie was the first movie that was kind of in the horror area. Up until then, for the most part, video cassette was Jane Fonda Exercise tapes and Michael Jackson's Thriller. And maybe they were getting into big mainstream things. But Vestron Video had a subsidiary label called Lightning, and they tried the Toxic Avenger, and they sold it for like $170 for one cassette. It's unbelievable. Now we have to pay people to take our DVDs. But it was really, Toxie kind of benefited from VHS for sure, but also it was a good movie to be the first one to prove to the marketplace and the companies that American pop culture could be very commercial. Prove once again.
Yeah! Basket Case had
I have no idea what I said, but
well, Basket Case had an interesting VHS history because Basket Case was one of the first horror titles that was marketed at a sell-through price. Before that was commonplace. So, as Lloyd had alluded to, video stores were paying huge amounts, companies were paying huge amounts of money for these movies, and videotapes cost $59.99, $69.99, $80 a pop. Basket Case was one of the first horror titles that you could buy for $20. And the first Halloween season where they reissued it at that price, it went off the charts. And you're super recognizable to this day. When the movie was at its prime on video cassette, did you ever have random citizens approaching you as, hey, are you the kid from that movie? You must have had some incidents.
Oh, yeah.
Any stories?
Can I talk to your brother?
Sorry. I live in a very rural area in the Catskill Mountains, and kind of way out in the middle of nowhere. So I'm in the Victory supermarket, Mansfield, New York, and two guys come up to me and say, "You're that guy!" I mean, here that would be normal, but at home it never happens, because they know me as the sculptor guy, not as the basket guy. So it does occasionally happen.
And one of the movies you were in, Intruder, was a movie that had this mythos about it because it was so heavily cut in the US, and then overseas it was released uncut. And nerds like me would trade bootleg VHS tapes off of Japanese Laserdiscs just to see the gore inserts from Intruder.
Yeah, that was a very unfortunate thing about the movie. It was released originally, and it was so heavily cut, but the movie didn't even make sense. I mean, it was really bad. But now that there are versions available in the United States where it's uncut, I think it's Synapse. They did a great version of it. It's on Blu-ray now. It's a good movie. I mean, I was shocked to watch it because the only thing I'd ever seen were the chopped up versions. And I'm thinking, what the hell is this movie about? I mean, this guy's dead already, and he's back over here. What the fuck's going on? And it was terrible. It was absolutely a horrible movie. But the Synapse version, I actually watched it a couple of years ago. This is a good movie. So go watch it if you haven't seen it. And watch an uncut version. So that's kind of how I benefited from the whole VHS thing, because it killed me. I mean, there are so many versions of Intruder out there that were horrible, but people don't know it's actually a good movie.
It wasn't VHS that killed you. It was the Motion Picture Association of America, which is the evil censoring board that tried to kill us independent filmmakers by chopping up our movies, but not chopping up the movies made by the mainstream. And that was their way to prevent and to try to put a monkey wrench into the new technology until they could take it over and create Blockbuster, which never ever had a Troma movie history. Because it was owned by the conglomerates.
Well, what about some of your battles with the MPAA, Lloyd? And there were many.
The purpose of the MPAA was not to protect the public. It wasn't to protect the children from trauma. The purpose of the MPAA was to protect the cartel that runs the media, the small number of giant devil-worshipping international media conglomerates, to protect them from competition. That's all it is. And unfortunately, MPAA has won because there are very few independent studios that are able to survive and live in the climate of MPAA.
Dino De Laurentiis, Evil Dead 2 was supposed to, originally it was going to be rated the next movie. It was an X-rated movie. And Dino had a contract with them saying that I can't release anything without your permission, and they didn't want to release an X-rated movie. So he formed a corporation called Rosebud to release Evil Dead 2, and it was released as a non-rated movie, which is crazy because now, 7, 8-year-old kids are watching the movie. I think it's wonderful.
The theaters wouldn't take it.
No, they wouldn't take it.
The theaters wouldn't take the no rating. It
Not-
had to
not-
be hard. It had to be hard.
And
And it just got worse and worse in the 80s when these movies came out. When there were, before that, drive-ins and grindhouses and venues where you could show unrated movies, suddenly there were none, and all those independent theaters were closing, and you really were limited.
Come on down.
Come on down!
Come down to be part of it.
Oh, with Daniel there. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm just listening.
But you know more about this than any of us.
Probably.
For sure.
I spent my entire career on the dumb end of the camera, so I don't know.
The main thing, the big lesson for anyone here who wants to be a movie maker or do anything, there is a small number of elite who control the various industries. And if you do something independently, their tentacles are going to try to strangle you. And you've got to look at it as, to change metaphors, you're a cork on a sea of aircraft carriers. And they're going to do everything they can to put you out of business. And you're going to be the one to take the risks. You're going to be the one to go into new territory. And you're going to be the one to get a jump on the bad guys. But they're going to try to bring you down by throwing a monkey wrench into the new technology.
Well, what's your secret, though? You've adapted to so many new technologies over decade after decade where others have failed. Why do you think Troma has succeeded?
Well, I have lips like a woman, so I know how to use them. But we've kept under the water. We've kept our noses clean. We don't have debt, and we made movies where there are just enough people who will support them and who work their asses off to find our movies. It's very hard to find them.
He's a producer. Think what the poor actors have to go through.
Oh yeah.
Looks like a woman. I got a butt.
And Phantasm, of course, was a huge hit. And then you reappeared in Phantasm 3 and on. What was it like returning to the series?
By the time Phantasm 3 came along, I was over it. Pretty much over it. You know, I had been in the entertainment business since I've been 7 years old or something like that. So, you know, it was more like, well, do you want to just hang out with your friends for 6 weeks? And so that was a yes. That was fun to do that. And, you know, it was fun. It was good to come back. It was nice.
Now, we talked a little bit about how Intruder was released overseas in other versions. Now, Lloyd, you had some Japanese co-financing going on in the Toxic Avenger sequels. What was that experience like?
We didn't have financing on the Toxic Avenger, but even though he did go to Japan. But it was because we made the second Toxic Avenger, we shot a lot of it in Japan, that we attracted the attention of Mr. Nakamura from Namco, who are now part of Bandai. They created Pac-Man game, and Mr. Nakamura liked the idea of Kabuki Man, so that's how Kabuki Man got made. So, and there we always had rating problems there again.
Do they still have that? I mean, like I said, I've spent my entire career on the dumb end of the camera. Do you still have to worry about the ratings?
No, they've won. They've won. You can't hit movies unless you've got a shitload of money to advertise or some big stars. You know, you don't really get much theatrical. You can't get it. You can't get in. The theaters are under control. The theaters are. What do you have? Regal, and I don't know what you've got in this country, but in our country you've got 2 or 3 chains that, and then a sprinkling of a very small number of independent theaters who also play a lot of mainstream stuff. So the MPAA has pretty much won. So we don't need to go. We used to have to pay the MPAA to chop our movies up so we could get that or so that we could get into theaters, so that we could then get into video stores. That was really horrible business. But they won. And you have to pay to get your movies chopped up. But now at least you don't have to pay that entity. We can get our movie into 200 or 300 theaters, one by one. But that's, you know, like Chinese water torture. You know, it's a horrible business. They won.
Who has questions for the esteemed panel from the audience here? It's an esteemed panel, goddammit. Come on,
Well, the good news, of course, the good news is that sorry to keep yapping, but I'm very old. The good news, with age comes wisdom. The good news is that the making of cinema is democratized. Everyone can make his or her own damn movie. You don't need the fuckers. You can be a real person. You can be a nurse or a teacher or you know, whatever, dancer. You don't have to go out there to drive a cart in Disneyland. You can make movies for very little, for almost nothing, and be a real person. So that's terrific. It's just virtually impossible to live off your work. That's where the wrinkle comes. So it's a yin and yang thing. So there's really wonderful news on the horizon for people who truly live for the art. If you live for the money, you may have to join up with Rupert Murdoch.
How do you sift through all the product that you could choose to distribute to pick the movies that you pick up? I mean, you over the years have picked up great movies besides the ones that Troma made themselves, and you continue to do so. I mean, I myself get boxes of unwatchable screeners. How do you manage these piles of product and decide what to even start with?
We make our own unwatchable screeners.
Back there's a question.
Well, how do you do it though? How do you pick what you're distributing today? Does it mean you're still
Usually Troma's the last stop on the train. Do you think that Trey Parker and Max Stone wanted Troma to distribute their masterpiece, Cannibal the Musical? Don't you think they would have preferred Paramount to give them a shitload of money? We were the last ones on this. Nobody got it. Everyone in this business is such a sheep herd. They're afraid to look at a movie like Cannibal the Musical.
So if anybody out there has a
money.
screener, send it to Lloyd to look at it.
So we recognize that. But it's not like we get a lot of great movies. We are definitely the last stop on the train.
I have a question for Lloyd. With all the movies that are currently being remade over and over and over again, I I just have to ask this, is there plans for remake or Toxic Avenger?
Yeah, good news, yes. If we can, we will try to sell out and get a big check. I told you I had lips like a woman. Yes, there's going to be a remake, and I think it may be good. You know, you don't go to movie jail for a good remake. And a lot of the best films in history, A Star is Born was the third iteration of that movie. It was one of the greatest movies of all time. And tons of remakes and sequels are better than the original. And with my standard of directing, whoever directs the remake can't but make a better version. So I think it's going to be all right. But they're very slow. They take a long time. The good news is they will keep me well away from anything to do with the movie. The other thing, though, there is a Toxic Avenger musical. Speaking of new technologies, musical, the hottest new thing. And I just went to London. I just come back from London, England, and it was a big hit. It was very good. Music by David Bryan from Bon Jovi, thank you. And they won a Tony for their other Joe DiPietro and him won a Tony with another play. So it's a good musical.
When I first found out that there was Evil Dead the musical, I said, "What? You're kidding, right? I mean, it's something else and not the musical."
It's very good.
That's right. I unfortunately haven't seen it.
It's really good.
Is that what that's from? Is that from yours?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Cannibal
Played here
musical.
twice.
That's amazing.
And poultry guys Night of the Chicken Day.
Thank you guys for doing fans, by the way. Thank you.
When's the Bloodsucking Freaks musical?
Who knows?
That's where the lips come in handy.
Yeah. Yes.
The blood-sucking lips.
Other questions?
That disturbed you, didn't it?
I think it's fun.
Alkaloidy.
A question for you.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yes, little boy.
Yeah. Just wanted to say that I agree with what you say about the Hollywood system. I mean, I've been to LA a number of times, and it makes me feel it turns you into a whole nother person. I mean, it's like watch, in the movie Demons. They watch that movie and they become these demons. I don't know if you agree, but it turns you into a whole nother person, a bad person in a way. Hollywood, that whole system. And I just
these people in Hollywood, the big shots, the people that run Paramount and stuff, they don't have a fucking clue. They make a movie and then they'll show it to a bunch of people and say, all right, what should we do to this movie? Because we don't know. I mean, they have screenings over and over and over again, so that people can actually tell them what's wrong with the movie or what's right with the movie. It's just ridiculous. These people don't know. I mean, they really have too much going on in their heads to even pay attention to what they're doing. They'll say, well, what do you think about that? And then that person will say, what do you think about that? And that person ends up talking to Michael, and Mike says, it's pretty good. They say, okay, we'll back it, let's go. They don't know. They haven't even seen the fucking movies or read the scripts or anything else. They don't know.
There's an interesting story early on about the first Basket Case film. I think it was an Analysis.
Yes, Analysis.
Analysis was the first distributor, and they cut it. And it wasn't doing very well, and it was kind of tanking. And Joe Bob Briggs wanted to show it. Yeah. And Fred said, well, it's cut. He said, no, I won't show a cut film. And so they snuck him an uncut version, and that's what he showed, and it did really well. And Analysis saw that, and just very quietly, without mentioning it to anybody, just started replacing the cut versions with the uncut versions.
With the R rating still on it on the poster.
Yeah. And it started to take off. Don't listen to them.
Yeah, I was playing at the Waverly, and Frank Henenlotter walked by the director, and he thought the line was for another movie, but it was Basket Case, and all it took was them swapping out the cut version for the uncut version.
Yeah.
Makes a big
And like I said, the
difference.
people that were really doing the ratings have never seen the movie anyway.
Well,
If they did, they weren't paying attention to it.
we did that trick many a time, where you get the rating and then you put the stuff back in. But I think we may have actually perfected that. I think you owe me for that. But we.
That's another case where the lips come.
Man's obsessed with lips.
You started it.
He loves the flaming lips. At any rate, I don't know what I was saying. It was fascinating.
There was.
Bloodsucking Freaks was
Yeah.
90 minutes. It was a 90-minute movie, and we cut it down to 54 minutes to get an R rating.
Wow.
And then we put the stuff back in, and we sent the film around. It wasn't, there were mainstream. Well, Bloodsucking Freaks was pretty bad. It shouldn't have ever been made. But it was playing in the Bronx in New York, and a angry housewife who brought her 5-year-old child into the theater complained, and the MPAA caught us because in their records it said 90 or 95-minute movie, and our R-rated version was 54 minutes. So we got into serious hot water, and it's not about the censorship. It's nothing to do with that. They get you on the misuse of their copyrighted letter. They own the letter R. Sesame Street does not own it. So if you use it and you are using it fraudulently, they can come after you for big money. So we had to take ads in Variety and Hollywood Reporter and say we were bad boys and we apologize.
They didn't do that with the X rating because there's like a handful of hardcore movies that have like real X ratings,
Yeah.
but then you could use an X rating.
Yeah, I can't remember what the deal was with that,
Yeah.
but I think maybe that was public domain or something.
Right,
They would
right.
have taken, MPAA would have taken every letter of the alphabet if they could. They're owned and controlled by by the big studios, the motion. That's who pays their 800. Valenti was getting $1 million a year for cutting up people's movies. So the majors support it, and it's there as their personal censorship.
Well, the idea, the false idea in the U.S., of course, was that it was voluntary, unlike in England or in some parts of Canada. Like, oh well, it's not really censorship because it's not the government, but it sure as hell was censorship because you couldn't get your movie shown anywhere, you couldn't get it advertised. The newspapers wouldn't run the ads, theaters wouldn't show it, so it was de facto censorship, government or not. So, it doesn't make much of a difference. And one of the only really interesting points in that documentary about the MPAA was when they talked about how maybe you wanted to be censorship by the government because then you could challenge it in court or something, but you had no recourse with the MPAA. You just were stuck with their rating, and you could appeal, but it's a phony process. And yeah.
And the double standard, that was the thing that killed so many. That's one of the main reasons that there are so few independent studios that were able to keep going, because if they're chopping your movie up, that's all you've got. You don't have George Clooney in your movie. You've got your movie, that's it. And if they chop it up, you're done. And they knew that.
Damn them.
Yeah, definitely.
Is Jack Valenti still alive?
No, he's dead.
You seem unhappy about that.
He lived to be like 99 years old.
He was going to die in 97, then he died.
Yeah.
I was invited to the Southwest by Southwest Festival. They showed some Troma movies, and they had this huge press dinner, and luckily I filmed with him. And Valenti was being given Texas Cultural Hall of Fame or something, and he was up on the dais, and these pictures were going on, and suddenly he jumped off the dais, and I started running, and I followed him with my camera, and narrated at the same time, and he was going into the porta potties, and he really had to go, and then I filmed him coming out and narrated it.
So the guy really was full of shit.
And he got excellent. But he got a standing ovation for chopping up people's movies. I mean, I was like, oh my God. If you want to put it together in a make your own damn movie lesson, you can find it on the Troma YouTube channel. It's all free. I'm not sure how you find it, but it's there. Maybe you type in Valenti in Texas, someplace Southwest.
Well, that's me. I can't get my phone to work. My phone's still in Chicago, so I have no idea.
You got a question?
It's a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
That's why you're so happy.
I'm drunk.
Sorry.
This is Megan, ladies and gentlemen.
Speaking of Hollywood bureaucracy bullcrap, have you ever considered branching out into reality television, like The Bachelor starring Toxie. Yeah. To make a web series.
It's a very good idea. Gentlemen, I think we have a deal. That's a good idea. I don't know.
Little overhead,
It starts
lots
right
of money.
here. Well, the Sci-Fi
It's the
Channel,
first episode.
For about 10 minutes, the Sci-Fi Channel gave us some money to create a sizzle reel for them because they were interested in a trauma reality show, sort of behind the scenes. But they dropped it, once they got to know me, they dropped it. But we got a small check from them. What's that? Yes, exactly. When they saw the reality, yeah. They realized how boring I am.
I got to be pretty funny. You got me going.
Other questions?
We've been talking about distribution and your films like getting out there. So I'm interested from the actors on the panel if you have any good memories of seeing yourself again after the films were done, or any like the recognition stories, anything that comes up. And if not, a favorite on set memory.
Favorite anecdotes?
From what? Real life or movies?
No, like from when you like, do you like to see yourself again? Do you seek out your work, and do you watch with friends? Like, how do you approach that?
I personally can't stand myself. I hate it. It's a fucking movie, or whatever. Here, I mean, situations like this, I enjoy it because I don't have to watch it. I'm on the inside, so and I get to just watch you guys, which is you're better than any movie I've ever seen. So it's more fun.
I sort of grew up in the film business, you know, and I really, like many of us, I started seeing myself on television when I was, 10 and 11 years old, and when you're a kid, it's very exciting. It was very fun. But then eventually, once you're an adult and you realize that, putting yourself out there as an actor and being in a feature, whether the feature was good or bad, at the end of the day, it lives forever. It just goes on and on. It lives forever. So you really get serious about, okay, it's really important to not look like a fucking idiot forever. It's okay to look like an idiot on a daily basis, but it just lasts and lasts. It goes on forever. So it's not uncommon to find most actors aren't particularly interested in watching their own work. You really want to. The work is the day on the day. Do the work on the day and do your best that you can, and then you might see your work once, but to revisit films that you've made in the past, not too often.
The absolute best way to think you've done a good job, or to find something that really appreciates it. When you're filming it, if the crew thinks it's good, you've done wonderful. Because other than that, you don't have a chance. My all-time favorite thing that anyone has ever said about me was Jay Carr from the Boston Globe. He said, Danny Hicks is mostly annoying. And I thought, that's fine. I've got that framed. I've got it framed. And I always have to remember that, because you can't protect yourself. I mean, it's just out there, and people can say whatever they want to say about it. What are you going to do? Say, no, it's not. It's there, and that's all it's doing.
Perspective is everything.
Perspective is everything.
And I've been a fine artist in stone, where I work in stone carver, right? And I've been doing that for almost 40 years. And the thing is, 10 minutes later, your perspective can be different. Anything a moment can change your whole perspective. So it's not accurate, it's not valid to look back in time at what you did and then try to judge it. You just learn from it in the moment and move on.
Right, absolutely. Does that answer your question? Because we've all been drinking.
Yeah, right. Let's get drunk. How would you, as a sculptor, what is do you draw a parallel when you're working as an actor and as a sculptor, and as a, is there a link between those two art forms or crafts that you're able to draw from one to the other, and what is that?
Absolutely. All art forms share basic tenets or concepts. A principle of balance or form or movement works in music or dance or film when you're composing a shot. right? It has to, you look at it as a balance. If you're trying to figure out the story arc of a given character, you know, it has to make linear sense. It has to feel right. Two people, you know, will approach the same problem completely differently, with absolutely acceptable results. So it's, you know, that trying to dissect it is not valid. So yeah, yes. Just a short answer.
Yes, Lloyd. Hi. I just was wondering if you have ever considered pitching to Cartoon Network's Adult Swim Toxic Avenger cartoon show aimed more for mature audiences, adults, since Adult Swim does do that kind of aims for more
people that smoke pot.
I'm straight edge, gentlemen. Toxic Avenger was a cartoon show many moons ago, but I don't pitch. That's why I have my own little. I live in my own little bubble where Uncle Lloyd can do anything he wants as long as I don't spend any money. So, and I can't. You know, that's why I'm no good at pitching. Can't do it. I wish I could. But on the other hand, at least we have freedom. But Troma has 3 rules of, you asked for anecdotes. Troma has 3 rules of production. And oops, sorry, Toxic. Forget me. What's that?
Don't hurt the guys in bad enough shape.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
You poke the poor fucker in the eye, we're done.
Anyway, 3 rules of production. We have this plaster to put in people's heads. We have the posters put up. Safety to humans, safety to people's property, and then in smaller writing, make a good movie. And Troma, even though we're cheap as hell, we've never had any serious injury in over 40 years of producing movies. Thank you, guys. And
realize that you're making a movie, they're very tasty.
every second is dangerous. Oh my God! And on Toxic Avenger, we hired a guy to your film, Toxic. We hired a guy who had a great resume, mainstream. Stunt guy who had worked with Sinatra's movie, and we didn't skimp on any of the stunts. And the guy who put in the roll bar for the car that tips over, he did a really shitty job. And when the car in the scene tipped over, the roll bar went right through the floor of when the car was on its roof. The roll bar went through the floor like a straw through a wet bag. And luckily, it hit on the passenger seat and became an accordion. The driver's side, luckily, was okay. But that was the most horrendous anecdote in my career, because to have somebody injured or God forbid, killed, I mean, I'd be here, this would be a shoe convention, and I'd be explaining the different leather that we use in our shoes. So remember, it's a movie. That's the thing, and nobody should get hurt, and nobody's property or home should be disrespected.
What about the famous car flip that's used in every Troma movie? How were you able to pull that off? I know that Tamco invested some money into the famous flip it because it up in the air lands and blows up.
Now, he just spilled the beans. We've been using the same stunt in about 10 movies, and nobody caught us until that guy revealed it. What? Don't tell anyone. Everybody, do not tell anyone.
Sorry.
When Toxic will get you.
Sorry, Toxic.
So we're running out of time, unfortunately, but the esteemed panel, they're going to be hanging out all weekend. They have many more tales to tell. They have cool shit at their tables. What happens at Shock Stock stays at Shock Stock. So have a good time this weekend. And
That's why we're all men here on the table.
Yeah, right. That's going to stay right in this room, I bet you.
well, let's hear it for this esteemed panel.